obviously. Thank you, Jerry. So again, thank you for joining us on this beautiful sunny evening. We really are excited to share all of the progress we've made in this past year and what's coming up for our store. My slide. Okay, here we go. I wanted to quickly go over our agenda for the evening. We will start with introductions of the currently elected board of directors. Then we'll have information about the elections. I will give a quick state of the co-op. Actually, we're flipping the state of the co-op and the annual financial report. Then we have our architect, Megan Hart, with us tonight to share a pretty in-depth update on our store development and construction update. And then we'll have an outreach update, and then we will have a moderated Q&A at the end. Because there are so many people here, we are going to be watching the chat. So if you have questions during any of the presentation, please feel free to type into the chat, and our moderators will make a note of it, and they will ask questions relevant questions at the end of the meeting. We'll try to get to as much as we can, but we do have a short time. So I'm going to give some quick director introductions. So this is our currently elected board. They're elected by you. We have worked really diligently over the past year on meeting our mission of opening our grocery store. The board represents the voice and vision of you, our owners, and oversees the work and budgets of committees, ensures our co-op makes progress towards opening our store, and has a fiduciary responsibility to the ownership. On top of regular board work, the board has committed significant hours to the community. That was last year, I apologize. I have notes from last year here. The board meets twice monthly, and each of the directors typically serves on at least one committee. Next year, the work of the board will be incredibly important to our future success. So please vote, if you have not already, for our next set of board members, and we'll be talking a little bit more about that in a minute. I just wanted to highlight the work that we are doing as a board and as volunteers. As you can see, there are a number of different areas that the board spends time on. There's a wide variety of work that needs to be done to accomplish our goal of opening the store within budget, and one that meets our mission. Our work is divided into committees, and each committee has a charter with goals and objectives and a chair. And the board oversees and monitors the progress of each of our committees. And as I mentioned, each director serves on at least one committee and spends significant time making sure that the committee is making progress towards their goals and objectives. I did not apologize. I did not advance any of my slides. So here's our volunteer annual hours. I'm having problems. Okay. I wanted to share also the value that our volunteers bring to our ownership. Everything we do, for the most part, has relied on volunteers. That's going to change during the next year as we hire more people to help us open the store. But this volunteer hourly value is calculated based on data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it comes out to about $32 an hour in 2023, according to several different sources. So using that number, you can see the derived value for each of our committees. These are hours that the co-op does not have to pay for, and has saved us significant money over our 10-year history. We would simply not be able to open without our volunteers. Every volunteer brings unique skills and perspectives to our projects, and we have a wide variety of backgrounds on our board and through our volunteers. And I'm really proud that our co-op continues to be recognized for the strength and the number of our volunteers. As far as I know, we are one of very few startups who have ever had this level of organization and volunteer support. So I just want to underscore how much we appreciate all of the help, whether it's tabling at events, handing out flyers, door hangs, serving on a committee, leading a workshop. Every bit of help is important and helps us meet our goal and open our store. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jerry Hoptis and Leslie Carey, who are going to talk to you about our elections.
Hi, thanks, Kathy. I'm going to go ahead and get it started. Jerry and I just wanted to talk a little bit, as both the vice president, myself, and Jerry as the secretary, a little bit about what it means to be a director. Kathy touched on some of the things that we do, and then Jerry's going to talk about kind of the importance of our elections and also keeping your information updated with us so that you can participate in these important opportunities. So really, this is my first year as a director for PFC, but it has been, I think, a real, true, strong indication of everybody's commitment to these responsibilities, working with this group. We really are your voice, and we appreciate and really respect that responsibility that we have to making our store into the store that we all are looking for it to be. And as we get closer to opening, that responsibility becomes even that much more significant. So, we do serve up to 3-year terms, and the board officially meets twice per month. But we are all, as Kathy mentioned, serving on or leading committees. And that's really where the almost day-to-day, so to speak, work gets done. So right now, these are just a few of the things that we are working on as directors on your behalf. We're working to hire a GM to run our store and even oversee those store operations. Hopefully you've seen some of the communications going out about looking for that individual. We're also overseeing the construction of our store, albeit not directly. We've hired somebody to do that, which Kathy and Megan will talk about later. But we're also developing executive policies and expectations for our general manager to follow to ensure that that individual is running our store effectively and in line with our mission. That's really important for us as the voice of all of our owners to make sure that as we transition this responsibility over to the individual, that individual understands what those expectations and responsibilities really are. So there's a whole slew of policies and expectations related to that. And we talk about that every 2 weeks and try to define those and make sure we're covering all of our bases. And a lot of what is driving that is also our ends. For those of you who have been following us on social media, these are the guiding principles of Prairie Food Co-op. And we've really been striving to write those so that they more fully capture or define the mission that we have already defined for our store. So we look to those to really get the guidance that we need as directors and work for you on behalf of the store. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jerry to talk a little bit about our election process.
Thank you, Leslie. As has been pointed out before, the role of the director is extremely important, and there's a lot of responsibility that goes with it that we take very seriously. We have 11 board members, and we have 1 interim board member. And currently in our elections this year, we have 5 qualified candidates, and there are 4 open positions. So with that, I want you to understand that for the board continuity, we actually have somewhat of a turnover of directors. Usually the count is 3 to 4 people every year. That way we maintain a level of continuity of the board and the issues and the activities involved over the course of the multiple years. So the boards are staggered terms, and that helps us stay right in front of all the issues that we're facing. The software that we've used this year, and actually we used it last year, hopefully everybody has had a positive experience with it. It's an election runner, and it provides a very secure, auditable, and by that, what I really mean, it provides all the statistics and the results, but it really doesn't share, the software does not share the actual voting detail, just to put everybody at ease with that. But it's been a great tool. It really has simplified and I believe made the communication aspect and the ability for all owners to vote that much more easy and streamlined. But with that, one of the things that I wanted to run into, or that I had run into and I wanted to share, is the importance of keeping your information, your telephone number, the address, the email address, keeping that information up to date. That information is what was driving our election communication this year. So if I'm guessing that you, by the fact that you're here today, you are keeping your information up to date. But should it change, please, throw out the message to PFC so that we know where you can be reached. And if you have others that you know that are owners or thinking of becoming owners, just kind of remind them that it's extremely important so that we can stay in touch with things. Lastly, I just wanted to share that our voting will end tonight after our meeting. So if you haven't, please task away and make sure that you get your vote in. And the last point is, if you haven't considered running for the board in the current year or the prior year, please give consideration. It is open to all owners. Give that consideration to maybe running for a board position next year. So thank you for your time with that, and I will turn it over to Tom Lamberty, who will be going into our financials.
Okay, good morning, good evening, everybody. Simple report this year. I'll be looking at income and expense for the year just ended, March 31st. And then when I look to the future, it'll be based on our pro forma, which is all the costs related to opening our store. And as we move past the construction to operations, all of the data that is formed in the pro forma will be used as the base for the operating financials for the store. Of course, less concentrated on construction and more on operations. But that's why we're going to ease you in from this year to next year. Income for this year, owner equity is new owners. We get that through $200 minimum per owner, and we have the odd number there due to the fees through our system, but we did get quite a few owners this year. This year, our donations are actually significantly higher than in the past, because what we're doing is we are starting to use the donations received during the capital campaign to reimburse us for project-related expenses, meaning construction, equipment, etc., related to the actual store opening. So as we spend the money out of our existing checking account, we are able to get reimbursed from the donation account, which is held by CDS, Cooperative Development System, as our fiscal agent, so people can give tax deductible donations. And this year we've collected over $97,000 to reimburse us for project expenses. Next slide, please.
It's really slow, sorry.
Okay. These are the standard expenses we've been reporting: professional fees, dues and subscriptions, owner recruitment, training, and administration. I added pro forma expenses. These are the expenses that we accrued during the current year directly related to the store. And most of those are various consulting fees for design, permitting, things like that, to get the baseline for what is going to be built. So you can see professional fees, which is other consultants, whether it be accountants or for general manager search or pro forma development or legal for our lease. All of those are in the first. Pro forma, store-related design expenses, about the same amount. Dues and subscriptions are mostly computer subscriptions so that we can collect dues, track things, our QuickBooks Online, that type of thing. Owner recruitment is our ownership and outreach group. reaching out. This year, it appears mostly electronically, but have had a few community events. Training is mainly board training, and then administrative fees is things like postage and bank fees. So we had significantly more income, 141,000 versus 89,000 in expenses. Next slide, please. Well, actually, this is a graph. I thought that before hitting you with where our sources came through in dollar amounts, we could have a graphic of how we're doing this. Grants, donations, owner equity, and preferred shares are the lion's share of the money, over 2/3, about 2/3 of what we have collected. One important feature that should be pointed out, the bank loan, which is basically from 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock, 21%, is almost the inverse of what most people run into when they're buying a house. Normally, if you're lucky, you'll put 20% down and you're going to borrow the other 80%. But with the co-op, we have basically generated about 80% of the money on our own, whether it's grants, donations, owner equity, preferred shares, member loans, landlord contribution, without having to borrow from the bank. So that's very good for us. The banks really appreciate that that much is coming from our own efforts. Next slide, please, which shows the details in dollars. You can see the grants. We were very fortunate this year to get both a state grant for, I believe it's rebuilding downtowns and main streets, and then a federal grant sponsored by Congressman Sean Casten. With the efforts of our own members, volunteers, and grant writers, we were very fortunate and very lucky to get these to help us meet our goal of financing. You can see we've had to raise about over $4.7 million for the project. Next graph, please. This is the uses, where the money is going. Basically, the right half plus some, 53%, is construction and equipment. That's the biggest dollar amounts. Again, in the upper 10 to 12 range of the clock, you have working capital and overrun allocation. Our goal is to have as much money on hand as we can, not only as working capital for our store, but set aside for overruns just in case our estimates prove way out of whack. So far, the expenses, the estimated expenses are coming in a little high, but well within our overrun numbers. And any overrun dollars that are left will be used towards working capital to give us a good, sound financial base to go to the future. A lot of the other categories, startup promotions, staffing, we're in the process of hiring a general manager. We already have a construction manager. Pre-operating administration is basically getting us to where we are today. Next slide for the absolute dollar amounts. And there you can see, while we had 4.7 million in sources, we only have 4.3 in uses based on current estimates. So we're hoping that we will end up ahead, not having to spend all of the money we raised, and have a good base for going and opening our store. So that's it on this set. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I'm going to quickly review kind of what we've done this past year to get us to the point we're at today. 2022 and 2023 was a very busy year for us. We spent a lot of time negotiating our lease for the Eastgate site. And we also, once we were able to get the lease and we knew we were moving forward at Eastgate, we spent an additional significant amount of time on equipment and construction budgeting and procurement to make sure we really understood the financial environment into which we were stepping at Eastgate. As Tom mentioned, it's a pretty big deal for us. In 2022, we were awarded 2 significant grants. Again, one is the federal grant through Representative Caston, and the other is a state grant, and they total about $1.5 million. And our project would simply not be possible at this point without that funding. So we're incredibly grateful and thrilled that PFC was awarded both of these grants. They were both extremely competitive. And on the rest of 2023, we will be focused on opening our flagship store at Eastgate. So hopefully you know that we have signed a lease, secured a lease at Eastgate Shopping Center. That's our official address is right here, 837 South Westmore Myers Road. We will be right between Ace Hardware and where the DMV is moving to. So if you're not aware, the Eastgate Shopping Center is going through some major renovations. And so one of the big items that's being done is the DMV is moving from, I always get my directions wrong, the south side where it currently is over to the north side. So Prairie Food Co-op will be sandwiched between the new DMV location and Ace, which is a really great spot to be. There's a lot of foot traffic around there. So we're really excited about this site. Of course, before signing a lease, the board did our due diligence and we conducted a market feasibility study to ensure that Eastgate was a financial feasibly option for us. And not only did the report come back with strong findings, it actually told us that Eastgate outperforms every other site we've investigated. So we're really excited about that. And that this site really ticks the boxes of pretty much everything we were looking for in a store. Obviously, for a suburban shopping center, you need a parking lot. And as anybody who's been to Eastgate knows, Eastgate has a giant parking lot. There's boatloads of parking. Our consultants were very, very excited. They've almost never seen a parking lot as big as this for a grocery store. So very excited. Of course, we're going to install bike racks for cyclists. There's no bike racks there now. And as part of the renovation, I mentioned the landlord has also said that they are going to be repaving the entire parking lot. They said this spring, but a lot of the project for a lot of different reasons has been pushed. So I'm not sure when that's happening, but it'll happen before we open. There's really great synergy between the co-op and ACE. For those who don't know, ACE is another type of co-op. ACE store management's very, very excited about the co-op being located right next to them. In fact, they've reached out to us and already invited us to participate with them in several events that they're having. So we're excited about that. There's also ample outside seating possibilities. The walkway in front of the store is really large. And if we have enough in our budget, we're going to make it even bigger. So we'll have a pretty decently sized outdoor seating area. And of course, the big parking lot, not only in the front, but also in the back, opens up a lot of opportunities for outdoor events. If you've driven by there recently, you'll also notice that there is a major facade renovation going on. So a lot of things have been boarded up, but some of the facade work has been done on parts of it. So that's evolving, but we're really excited about this site. And this site really has a lot of great aspects to it that I think is going to make our store this is going to be a really great location for our store. But that doesn't mean everything is going to be easy. We do have some challenges, and I think it's good to be transparent about some of the challenges we know that we're going to face. Some of the most challenging ones are the continued inflation and supply chain issues and cost of labor. They continue to increase rapidly. Just as a comparison, our budget last year for opening a 20% larger store on Main Street was about $3.5 million. That was in 2021. To open a smaller store at Eastgate, it is about $1 million more. And that's just how rapidly the costs are increasing. So we've done a lot of work to safeguard against those rising costs. As I mentioned, our team spent significant time looking into getting quality used refrigeration and other equipment. Those are some of the most costly pieces of equipment in our store. We're able to find some at significant savings. So it gives us a little bit more wiggle room with other areas that are likely to see increase in costs. We were also able to purchase almost half of our new equipment from Kevin Corral, who's a PFC owner, and he owns Aid Food Service Supply, and he allowed us to buy that at cost, and that also allowed us to have a significant savings in equipment, which is one of the two biggest pieces of the budget that we're going to be spending. We have a construction and equipment are the two biggest things we'll be spending money on. But there's also delays in some of the equipment. The biggest delays we're seeing now revolve around electric panels and rooftop cooling systems, both of which PFC has to order and install. But with good project planning, we don't anticipate that causing a delay. And then one of the last pieces is that the grants. While we're really excited about the grants, they do come with strict requirements for bidding, procurement, and when we can spend the money. And the state grant is a full year behind. And so we don't even know yet what our time frame for spending the money is and what we can spend the money on exactly. And so we still have some uncertainty in that area, but it's absolutely critical that we follow all of the rules and regulations for the grant so we won't receive the grant funding. So we're taking that very seriously. We've hired a grant manager for each of those grants. And lastly, we have to hire a general manager. That's the most important hire we will make as a board. That's the person who's going to come on and they're going to oversee the opening of the store and the operations of the store. And we'll create an awesome, welcoming, inclusive store that we're all really excited about. It's a very, very highly specialized job that requires skills that most people who are store managers in big box stores simply do not have. It takes most startups about 6 to 12 months to hire the right GM. And so, our GM search committee is actively working to find the right person. We've also engaged 2 consulting firms to help us interview and vet the right person. So we have challenges, we know what they are, and we are, I feel like we have the right people in place to help us overcome them. One of those people is here to talk to you now. She is Megan Hart. The board has retained her as our architect and designer for this project. Megan has been a volunteer with the co-op almost since day one. She was instrumental in helping us with our very first event, which was Harvest Fest way back in maybe 2000 and I don't even know 10. We had over 1,000 people attend and she was a big part of that. So I'm really excited that Megan is here tonight to talk to you about what you can expect in our future stores. So I'm happy to welcome Megan.
Thanks, Kathy. You can go ahead to the next slide for me. So I'm happy to be here to give a design update because things are really happening now. So a little bit of what we've been doing so far. As Kathy mentioned, procuring the food service equipment has been a big task that we've tackled over the last couple of months, as well as the retail shelving. Those items have longer lead times, and so we wanted to be sure that we had those in order to open. And then we've also been refining the original fixture plan. The co-op had a fixture plan done by a consultant last year. And what we've done as the design team is take that and refine it and make it work. So we've engaged engineers to help with the mechanical, electrical, plumbing design. We've also had them coordinate the refrigeration equipment that PFC has procured. And then we're also working on the interior and exterior design of the facility, all based off that original plan. Something else that has been happening behind the scenes is PFC hired a construction manager, which is a really critical step in helping us identify high budget items and making smart choices to keep the budget in line, as well as ordering equipment ahead of time. So we're actually trying to order some of these longer lead items like Kathy mentioned, rooftop units, and any kind of electrical gear ahead of us actually needing to install it. A big part of my job is actually coordinating all of the design disciplines that we have on this project. While it seems like a smallish project, we've got architects, we've got engineers, both structural, civil, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. There's a lot of hands involved with making this project work and making it efficient. Developing the interior design scheme. I've been working with a design committee selected by PFC to really kind of define what we want the store to feel like and what the vibe is going to be. And I think the members will be pleased. It's taking shape, and I'm excited to share some of that with you tonight. And then we've been refining the exterior design scheme. Something that we have also been working on is retaining village incentive money so that we can pay for some of these upgrades to the facility that also benefit the community. So last week or the week before, Economic Development Committee for the Village of Lombard approved our incentive ask. So we will have some dollars from the village to be able to spend to really make the exterior of our store ours and really make it visible from West Fort Myers Road. And then lastly, we've been coordinating some of the specifications with the landlord. You know, we negotiate a lot of things with this space. You know, as Kathy mentioned, anybody that's driven past Eastgate lately knows that there is a big facade upgrade project happening. And so we've been lucky that we've been able to coordinate a lot of the design features that the landlord is providing into our specifications as well. For example, they're providing us with a new automatic sliding glass door for our front door, but we actually need 2 of them. So we're making sure that, you know, the new one that PFC has to procure is in line with what the landlord's providing, and just coordinating all of the base building upgrades that PFC is responsible for. Go ahead to the next slide. So what does all that mean? This is a really kind of elementary graphic here on where we're at in the design process. So we're near the end of the design development phase, which is right before the construction documents phase. Construction documents would be the final drawing product that's produced through this whole process. And that would be the set of documents that we are obtaining bids from and submitting to the village for permitting. So as Kathy mentioned, you know, we're still kind of trying to work out some of the tweaks with the plan, making sure that we're being responsible with our material selections, making sure we're being responsible for the budget, and coordinating all of the pieces that are going to come together to make the store work. We issued a design development progress set in March that the construction manager has been pricing out, and then also working to finalize the specifications. Our engineer as the year, we can order those. Also exploring, you know, cost saving measures in terms of flooring, roof screening, and roof insulation. Go to the next slide. So a little bit on the exterior design. You know, we've been having some design meetings with the design committee and kind of forming goals about what we want the store to look like and feel like. And one of the main things that needs to happen is there needs to be visibility from West Fort Myers Road, both in the daytime and in the nighttime. And so in order to do that, we are going to build up the facade that faces that road with some warmer materials, and put a backlit sign on there so that it can be seen at all hours. And then also important to the committee is to have inclusive messaging. So, you know, in this little sketch here, we're just using the phrase "all are welcome." So we're working through what that wants to be, but we want to be clear that you don't have to be an owner to shop at the store. That truly everybody is welcome here. And then just picking materials that align with the branding that PFC has been using this entire time. I think it's a successful brand. It's been it's recognized within the community, and I think building upon that will be the success of our store and part of the marketing strategy. So I've just kind of included a little snapshot of some of the materials we're looking at. The material on the left lower left corner is a wood look product, but it's actually a fiber cement product, so it's the maintenance on it is minimal. And we've got the punch of yellow that's in the PFC branding. And then the 3 materials that are actually on the right-hand side of that is just material the landlord is providing with part of the facade upgrades. So We got really lucky in that they picked kind of neutral, timeless materials that will tie into our branding really well. And then, just kind of a few more images of the interiors here. We've got produce, bulk, dairy, really just trying to emphasize, kind of the spaciousness of the store. We've got our grab and go section and the frozen area. I apologize for the dogs in the background. And then this is kind of a view of the little coffee station that we'll have. It's planned to be a self-serve area. I don't want to give anybody the wrong idea that we're going to have a full-on coffee bar with barista, at least not when we open, but we will have a really great coffee selection with kind of a self-serve area next to the pastries that we'll be able to offer. And then, of course, a big part of the design is the cafe space. So this is probably the space that takes the most design creativity, because it's a space that has to serve a lot of functions. Not only is it the cafe area, but it's also the main programming location for any of the events that PFC will be hosting. So it's got to have serve a lot of functions. We'll have full recycling, trash, compost area in that space as well as some AV, and then trying to create privacy if there's an event going on while the store is open. As far as the interior design of the store, we as a committee did a lot of due diligence in exploring what other grocery stores in the area look like. Oftentimes we don't really pay attention to the lighting or the colors or the flooring. So really kind of doing a deep dive on a lot of the surrounding grocery stores in a visioning session, where we could kind of react to, what we thought was successful, what we liked, what people gravitate towards. And then we developed goals on how we want our space to feel based off kind of some of that research. And again, keeping in mind the branding that PFC has been so successful with this far. And then the really exciting piece of this is, we want a store that's going to capture the spirit of DuPage County, Lombard, and of the Eastgate Shopping Center. On the interiors side, we're really embracing the Prairie in Prairie Food Co-op. And we have some beautiful imagery to really draw some of the earth tone colors that are throughout prairie landscapes in all seasons of the year. And also crafting opportunities where we can pull in some locally inspired art and photography to in strategic points within the store. Selection of durable and cleanable materials. At the end of the day, this is a grocery store, food service function. So we want to be sure that from a sanitation standpoint, we're meeting those needs and requirements of the health department. And then implementing sustainable materials where they're feasible. We've got a lot of reclaimed wood, but we're not using it on surfaces that are prone to people touching them, or where they might come in contact with food, but rather they're up, more as decor elements within the area of the store that people won't be actually touching. And then just being mindful of maintenance in the future of the store. Especially when it comes to flooring. Flooring can be a really costly maintenance item for a tenant and an owner. So we just want to be understanding that there might be different costs associated with whatever product we pick, not just from labor and install, but also from just maintaining it in the future. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Megan.
Yes. Thank you, Megan, for that informative and very exciting update for our store. I'm Jerry Nash. I'm coordinator, outreach coordinator and co-founder of Prairie Food Co-op. And I'm going to do it a little different tonight. Usually at this point, I talk about what we've been doing as far as outreach in the last year. Maybe I go over owner numbers, give you a little sneak peek of what's coming up. And then I have usually some asks. I'm just going to do a little different tonight. I feel we have a little bit more important things to get to. I'd like to give you an idea of kind of like what we're going to have on our shelves, our pricing, and then a really more urgent ask than usual, and then our usual asks. And actually, my first ask will be, I usually like to take pictures of everybody in a meeting. So over the next few minutes, anybody who would like to be in a picture, please get on camera. You don't have to rush. I'll wait till we get to a certain slide, maybe a few slides later. But I'd like to take a picture of everybody here who wants their picture to be taken. But just know that if you get on camera and I take a picture, it's likely it's going to be on social media. So remind me when I get to the part about yard signs, if I don't take a picture, everybody yell at me or something. So I'm going to jump in. I've got two computers in front of me. So, okay. So first of all, I'd like to give everybody more of an idea what we're going to feel like inside. Because even as much as we communicate it, I just think there's bound to be miscommunications or misconceptions, more likely. So I think this is a good opportunity to maybe clear some of those up and expand a little, not just what we're going to be and what we're not going to be. First of all, we'll aim to be a one-stop grocery store. We'll have all the usual departments you're used to seeing in a grocery store: produce, dry goods, canned goods, frozen foods, prepared foods, meat, seafood, cafe items, and snacks. But the difference is we're not going to have 5,000 types of toothpaste. We're not going to have 20 types of sardines. We're going to have a little bit more of a modest selection, but enough selection so you have some options, just not an excessive selection. Also, we won't be a big box store. We're not going to have mufflers. We're not going to carry air fryers. We're just going to have things that you can basically use to cook a meal, or things you may use to cook, or maybe non-food items that you use throughout your day or week. Think like, toilet paper or health and beauty items, things like that. So it'll be a grocery store. You can get most of the things you usually want to have or use in your household. Also, not everything will be local or organic. Another way of putting that, we could do that, but we would probably be closed in a few months because that would not be a feasible store to run. We still need to make a profit. We still need to compete with all of our local conventional grocery stores. So we need to offer a good assortment of groceries that they're used to seeing. Also, we're not going to be a health food or a vitamin store. We just want to provide as many people with as much locally produced, sustainably produced food as possible. We're not in the business of telling people or judging how people eat. Of course, we'll probably want to have more like locally sourced things, more sustainably produced things, and maybe more cleaner junk food. Maybe, instead of 4,000 ingredients, there's just going to be 5. But let's face it, there's plenty to be had at a co-op that is completely unhealthy. You can trust me, I know I've eaten plenty unhealthy at food co-ops before. Again, we're not there to judge what you eat. We just want to provide an assortment. Also, as Megan mentioned, and I do think this is very important for us to continue to message strongly as we move forward, everyone is welcome to shop at our store, owner or not. It's just that PFC owners get perks. Those perks might look like, we can't promise what the perks will be, but I can tell you what I've seen. I've seen where maybe a food co-op offers a once a month trip that you choose to have 5 or 10% off. I've also seen where maybe there's days called owner appreciation days where every owner who comes in that day gets an across the board discount. Or I've seen where every day there's some items that are on sale for all of our owners. I've also seen, and actually we do it already, where we offer reduced fees for our workshop. So again, we can't promise what all the perks are going to be, but owners will get perks. Kathy, next slide, please. So our first biggest ask is when we open, we all need to shop at the co-op. It's very important for us to succeed to actually shop at the co-op. The way I think about it is a lot of people look at us opening as, hey, we did it. It's like, no, we didn't do it. We got to succeed too. So I don't look at us opening as a final destination. It's just halfway there. We have to succeed. And wouldn't it be a tragedy if we spent 11 years opening and then we were closed within a year or two because people didn't shop there? Just don't assume that everybody else is shopping there. We all have to shop there. Another aspect is that we want to shop as much food there as possible. I created a phrase I'm trying to coin: the bigger the basket, the better the business. Basket size is a true metric that grocery stores use in measuring their success. And if people go there and just get 2 or 3 things, we're less likely to be successful. We want people to look at Prairie Food Co-op as their primary shopping store, not the second or third store you go to after, Costco or Jewel. Also, be patient with our co-op when we open. I've seen it personally before. I've been on staff at new co-ops. It is inevitable that we will make mistakes when we open. When you go from a 100% volunteer board, committees, volunteers, to handing the keys, literally and figuratively, to paid staff, GM, there are bound to be bumps in the road. So please be patient as we open. Next slide, Kathy. And something I want to talk about and for you to be patient about is pricing. We want to be upfront and saying, and I think most people understand, our prices will reflect the cost of sustainably grown, a lot of it local, real food, which is to say a lot of our, not a lot, but some of our food, I don't even think the majority, will be considered what some people look at as higher cost. I don't look at it that way. I think it's the cost of real food. It's the cost of sustainably grown, real nourishing food. I personally think that we've gotten to a mindset to, we're okay paying a certain price for some things, but I think some of us, including me, feel food should be cheap and inexpensive. And if you think about it, it's probably one of the most important things that we buy. And I personally think we all need to get to a mindset of understanding the real cost of food. However, I want to say too, we are mindful, and we're not diminishing the idea that all of us, including me, finding lower cost items when we shop is very important. And we know some people maybe are lower income and not maybe in the positions that many of us are lucky enough to be in. So we will always strive to offer lower cost, but still quality options for better and wider access for all of our food to our community. One way I've seen that before, and I hope we implement at our co-op, is a staples program, where maybe we pick 100, 200 items that are the most used items that people use when they cook. And we artificially lower those prices and maybe put higher prices on things we know people are willing to pay a little bit more for, like health and beauty, things like that. So we can artificially lower the areas and more of our staples. And also, I don't want to give the impression that shopping at a food co-op breaks the bank. It doesn't. There are only some items that are a little higher cost that we really just can't compete with conventional grocery stores for various reasons. But for example, I've always seen savings. Every food co-op's got a bulk bin item where people fill up, the container you bring in, or maybe we'll provide reusable containers, because I don't know if the state of Illinois will let us use things that you bring in. But long story short, if you take out the packaging, you can get a lot of cost savings. And also, co-ops are innovating every day on how to make more and more items of food more accessible to our community. And the great thing about co-ops is we all work together. And if one co-op innovates something, all the other co-ops see it and get on board too. Next slide. So I urge everybody to remember our mission. When we open, please remember why we're open. I know that we all join for different reasons, but to me, the heart of why we open is to provide a marketplace for all of our local farmers, food producers, artisans who are producing or making products that fit in line with our mission. Next slide, Kath. So remember, shopping at a food co-op puts money in the pockets of local families and producers who grow responsibly and sustainably. Most of our vendors will use. A lot of them make their living by going to farmers markets or having CSAs. And as charming as we find farmers markets, I'm pretty sure that most of them don't like spending their whole spring or summer every weekend being at farmers markets both days, and a lot of times weekdays too. And then in the meantime, they're often scrambling around to get their CSA to people. All these people want to have a more stable source of income, and that's what food co-ops do, because conventional grocery stores don't know how to do it, or they demand that, you know, a local grower lowers their price point, and we don't want to do that. We don't want to pinch our local growers. Also remember that shopping at the food co-op helps to rebuild a local food infrastructure that's been disappearing for decades, which includes these businesses, these small businesses, these farmers. But it also includes food processors, local transporters, local food hubs, which all these things employ people. And that local infrastructure has been disappearing for the last 4 or 5 decades as we've all gotten to more industrialized food system. But the more food co-ops take hold, we can get that infrastructure back. Also remember that it's better for our environment because co-ops waste less, recycle more, and source more food locally. And it's just not about distance to our store. A lot of, say, farmers, the way they grow their food is more sustainable and better for our environment. They don't use as many insecticides or pesticides, or maybe any at all. Maybe they do crop rotation, which actually keeps the soil cleaner. They don't have to water more. There are just many ways that it's a compounding effect when we try to source locally and sustainably as possible. Also, shopping local or at a food co-op strengthens our economy by keeping more profit here in our community. And again, no judgment. I like shopping at a lot of our area places. I like Trader Joe's. But at the end of the day, when Trader Joe's, you know, cashes out, 99% of that profit's going to Monrovia, California. I like the idea of shopping somewhere where a much higher majority of the profit staying here in our community. It's going to the pockets of these farmers, these local vendors. And then they spend it here. And it has kind of a ripple effect. And our economy and our communities are stronger for it. Next slide, Kathy. And yeah, so I truly believe that shopping at a food co-op is a form of activism. It literally makes our world a better place. You know, on some level, I'm kind of a lazy person, and I like the idea of doing 2 things at once. I'm passionate about food. I have a very extensive cooking background. I love to cook. I love food. And I also believe in always pitching in. Wherever I've lived, I've always volunteered, been a part of bettering my community. And with food co-op, you can do both. When you go shopping, you're helping strengthen your community and you're making your money work for you. And you know, the more successful we are, the more successful we all are, which by that I mean, like, when we shop more at co-ops and we help our co-ops thrive, we then can help provide our local growers, our local artisans who make sustainable or grow sustainable food. We can help them become more successful, and maybe they can expand, they can grow. Or maybe other small businesses or potential growers who live around here say, hey, I've always wanted to grow flowers or beets, maybe things besides the soybeans, corn, pumpkins we see in Illinois. And it's the true thing. Whenever you see food co-ops, you see more small, independent, unique farmers. You see more small, independent, unique businesses. It's a true phenomenon. Also, and this is maybe a little bit more down the road, but as more and more food co-ops take hold and we begin building back our local food infrastructure and we have more local farmers and small businesses who are thriving, then as that becomes more the norm, I believe over time, then the prices that we become more and more accessible over time as we switch to a more local food infrastructure that we used to have. So please shop the co-op, and it makes our world a better place. So this is where I said I would take a picture. So everybody who wants to be on camera, please get on camera. And I'm going to take a few because I have multiple pages of people. So bear with me. I'm going to count to 3. And on 3, that's when you smile or give it your best shot. All right, 1, 2, 3. All right. Now I'm going to go 1 page down. Okay, 1, 2, 3. All right, well, great pictures. Thanks, everybody. Okay, now I'm going to go to my more usual kind of asks. First of all, please, as always, consider displaying a PFC yard sign. It's an exciting time. We're in the middle of designs because we're designing a new one with our address, and we're going to probably put a QR code on it. And speaking of QR codes, if you just feel like testing that out, if you want to take a picture of that, that'll get the yard sign order page up. And the yard sign fairy, who I think is here tonight, will deliver it to your yard. It's free, it's easy, and it gets the word out. It's the most cited reason people look into Prairie Food Co-op. Very valuable. Next slide, Kathy. Also, many of you may remember years back, maybe about year 2 or 3, when we first were organizing, we participated in the Lilac Day Parade. Since then, we kind of haven't, just simply because it's a lot of work. We needed to prioritize what we were doing. And actually, the last few years, because of COVID, that's been complicated. But now we've secured our store, and we want to get out to the community and say, hey, here we are. We want people to see us. We want to come out there marching all strong. So consider marching with us. We promise we won't make you dress up as food items, although it's welcome. And we will let you decide if you sign up. It's not a concrete commitment, and we'll reach out to you in the interim. Next slide, Kathy. And these are more some final asks too. These are still a little bit in the distance, or they're more, vague asks, but we will also be doing a door hang campaign. We did one a few years ago where we basically put door hangs on, I don't know, I'd say 90% of the households in Lombard. This time we wanted to go maybe more like a square mile around the co-op, because we think that'll give us a lot of bang for the buck, and people will get excited. It'll be easier to sell because, hey, we have a food co-op to point to. It won't be just an abstract idea. Also in the same vein, we want people to think about distributing brochures in the very near future. Also, as usual, talk to your friends, family, neighbors, and coworkers about Prairie Food Co-op. That's helpful. And last but not least, come to our official store celebration and bring a friend. We're almost at the time where they're getting the inside of the co-op prepared for us to hand us like a warm box, as they say, a warm white box. And there will be this little window where we'll have that space before they start doing the major renovations inside. So we want to use that opportunity to do some events. And one of the biggest ones we want to do a big store celebration where we invite our loyal owners like y'all, and for you to bring friends to consider ownership. We've done something like that in the past, but again, when we have a store, when we're literally standing in the store, we think it'll be a bigger and easier sell. So yeah, and last but not least, I would like to thank all of those that have helped get us to this point, that have served in outreach. I'm always kind of the face of outreach, but we wouldn't be here without all the picture in that picture and a few people who aren't in that picture because I didn't have time to add them. But it takes a true team to produce the level, the great level of outreach we do. We're actually nationally recognized from all the co-ops in the nation. We're often cited. We won awards, and we couldn't do the level of output we do without these people. So I want to give them a big thank you and appreciation for that. I think that ends my part of the festivities tonight, and I think we can move into Q&A. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. All right, we did get a couple questions. If anybody has any that they haven't yet shared, please do. We do still have a little bit of time. So I'm just gonna go in the order that they were asked. First one is for you, Tom. Jason would like to know, will the equipment cost be depreciated over time post-opening or be covered pre-opening?
What's going to happen is construction and equipment costs will be depreciated over time, starting when we open. So yes, we will get some accounting benefits for all that money we've spent on equipment and construction.
Thanks. Jason, if you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to let us know. Kathy, I'm going to ask you this question. I'm not sure though, because this might be something the landlord knows, but what will be going up on the south end of Eastgate where the DMV is now?
So we've heard rumblings that the landlord plans to eventually tear the buildings on the south side down and put up apartments or condos. They have not submitted any permits for that. Right now, they're concentrating on moving all the businesses and finishing their renovations, but that would be potentially a future use of that south side, which would be awesome for the co-op. So we're hoping that pans out.
Thanks. Maybe a question for you still, Kathy, or maybe Megan. Bonnie's wondering if there will be parking designated for PFC shoppers with the new DMV as our next door neighbor, and sometimes that parking lot can get full right near that area. Is there concern?
Yeah, the landlord was completely unwilling to designate any parking because there's so many different businesses there. They said that they've never done that and that's not their policy, but we did get, Megan, correct me if I'm wrong, 2 or 3 accessible parking spaces right in front of our store. We also have areas in the parking lot that landlord reluctantly gave us for grocery cart corrals. And we got employee parking in the back. So between that, even though the DMV does have parking that tends to fill up during the weekdays, they're not open on Sundays or Mondays. Sundays will be one of our busier shopping days. But we believe that there should still be enough parking. Megan, I don't know if you want to add to that, but.
Yeah, so PFC will have 3 dedicated spaces right along the storefront area of our space. And then actually the spaces that are kind of in front of the DMV space where you can park, head in, those are actually going to be used as staging areas for people taking driving tests and such. So nobody's going to actually be able to park there during business hours when the DMV is open. And then those spaces I think will be open for PFC's use on the days the DMV is closed.
Great. We also had a question, since all are welcome, will the co-op accept SNAP benefits? The Staples program sounds good too, was the comment. I believe that's a decision our GM will make as far as looking into those different programs and allowing us to apply for them. Kathy or maybe Tom, I'm not sure if anybody has any additional information on that.
I mean, I think it's definitely something we want to offer in terms of accessibility, but I do know those programs are difficult to apply for and set up. So we can't promise that it would be something we have at opening day, but I'm certain it'll be something we work towards. I think that the process just takes a while. And I don't even know if you can apply till you're officially open. So, and our GM would be doing that process.
Mm-hmm. All right, Jerry Nash, one of our owners would like to know how many owners do we have right now?
We are sitting at a nice round 1,750 owners.
Outstanding.
Yeah, I expect that number to go up as things heat up around the store. And ironically, when we open, we'll probably get the most owners we've ever had.
Okay, I believe I got all of the, oh, one more question. Who's going to oversee the GM? Is it the board? Kathy, I can answer that. I don't know if you want to though.
That's a perfect question for governance. So yes.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So the board will oversee the GM, and that's sort of these expectations and policies that we are writing right now. The GM is going to be held to those standards, and those standards are ones that we set in place as a board on behalf of all of the ownership. So that's going to involve regular reporting on different aspects of those policies and those expectations, so that the board is being continually informed of what's going on in the store, how it's being run, what foods are doing well, financial information, ownership information. There's a significant number of policies. Jerry, I don't know if you know the number, but there's a lot of different policies the GM is going to be held accountable to, which is why finding that right GM and the right person is so important to the success of our store as well. All right, yeah, there we go. Is there a definition for local, miles or area, as far as that goes? We don't have that defined at this point. That's a tricky thing for us to define right now. We really are going to look to our GM and the different vendors that we can work with as far as what's feasible for us to obtain and have in our store. But certainly we are going to try to source things from as close to the Midwest area as we can. But there are going to be things that, to Jerry's point about us being a full service grocery store, like bananas, which just simply cannot grow here. And so we will need to expand our definition of local for some of those items, since many people like bananas and would want to buy them at our store, as an example of some things where we may need to expand our definition of local for those services.
If I can add a little bit to that question, we do have a list of around 100 vendors of various types who are interested in working with us. And it is within the regional area of Illinois near us. Whether it's 100 or 200 miles, it's not 500 or 1,000. So there are vendors who are interested.
And
that's a great plug.
To add even further to that, there are so many Illinois co-ops opening in the next year or two. We're not the only ones. That the Cooperative Development Services has gotten a grant, a rather large grant, to look at the feasibility of a food distribution hub for food co-ops, which would be a game changer for our local food shed. So we're involved in that as part of a larger project that would have a big impact on all the food co-ops in the area.
Yeah, that's a great plug, Tom, too. I'll just add, if there are any owners here who know of local farmers or food producers who would want to submit their information for consideration, you can go to our website, and under the our store menu, there is a vendor application there. That's a great way for those to get on the list for consideration when we get to that exciting point.
I've communicated about this a lot, so
go ahead, Jerry.
The next question is from Jason. Do you have a percentage of local products that you would like to see in the store? Yeah, I'll say most conventional grocery stores only do about 5 to 7% local. We would like to see near 40. That's pretty much the higher end we've seen. But I will say, being in the Chicago area, I'm hoping we can up that number a little, since I'm sure there are a lot of more local makers, farmers, even like more innovative. Like, I know there's a lot of aquaponic places that sell like greens throughout the year. So I think being in the Chicago area, we can up that. But usually the higher end, you see about 40%. But I think as we move forward, we can always strive for more.
Megan, I'm going to throw this question your way. I think just to start, Angela's asking if there will be a butcher shop. Maybe you could talk a little bit more about some of the design and services of our meat counter, as we're
Sure.
expecting it now anyways.
Yeah, so as we know now, again, this is kind of, I think, a GM decision as to specifics that we'll have in the area, but we won't necessarily have a butcher on site, but we will have fresh local meat available for purchase in the deli area.
Thanks. All right. I'm going to give it just one more minute because every time I go to say, all right, I don't think there's any more questions, we get 2 more questions. So just to make sure that none of the owners have any other questions here. Amy, your question, are we reaching out to local farmers to, if we're aware of them and we know them, we definitely, do the same invite to ask them to fill out our vendor application form. A number of them already have and are on that list that Tom mentioned of over, 100 or so vendors. So we definitely try to make that effort, if and when they cross our paths to, or become known to us, we invite them to do that. All right. Well, we're pretty much at time anyways. Kathy, do you want to wrap things up?
Sure.
Or
I just want to say thank you again to everyone who attended and to learn more about what's coming up. It's going to be a very, very exciting year. 2023 and 2024 is going to be the year that you actually get to set foot in the store we've been dreaming about for so long. So definitely make sure you continue to follow our progress on social media and through our newsletter, and make sure you're talking to your neighbors about us. And we really appreciate all of your support because, the owners are really the base of what we do. And we're looking at ways to honor you in a special way when the store opens. And so we're excited to share that plan with you when we have it finalized. So thank you again for everyone for your support, for your continued support. Really appreciate it.
Good
Thank
night.
you all.
Good night, everybody.
Good night
Bye.
all.
Right. Thank you.